Hello.
Hello. We're
This is
back.
bonus action, episode 7. Did I get that right? Is it 7?
It is.
We did it. 7 episodes of the bonus action. This is actually technically the 6th episode of the bonus action, but we don't talk about that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You don't look at me like you don't fucking know.
Took me a second. I was like, did we miss? Oh,
Remember the one
right.
time we were like, oh, this is going to be a 1-hour podcast, and it took us like 2.5.
And then
like,
it
okay,
was.
maybe we should split this into 2 sections.
Whoopsie.
Yep.
I remember
Anyways,
we learned from our mistakes,
so
though.
we just got back from a lengthy discussion on the Unearthed Arcana with the barbarian wild whatever and monk astral something. And yeah, that was interesting. So make sure to check out that video if you haven't. It should be available on our YouTube if you're watching this in YouTube form now. So check that out. But now we're not talking about any of that shit. We're talking about whatever the hell we want, as well as taking the questions from you guys. So feel free to ask away if you have anything. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about? D related? Did anybody prepare anything? Do I need to tap into my own resources?
Yeah,
here?
you might need to.
Yeah, you might need to do
shit.
that, bud.
So, okay, sure. Let's talk about something that is prominent to us recently. And I'm only doing this because I was struggling for some ideas for this bonus action, and it just kind of dawned on me. But what's your guys' opinions on absent players and how
Kick 'em
you
out.
handle their characters as a DM, I guess, or how you prefer it as a player, your other fellow members, because there's this conversation actually can go in a number of different ways, and I've seen a number of things throughout the years from other D&D groups that have posted their experiences online, and also just stories from what I've heard people who've played before me and whatnot, or excuse me, in other groups and whatnot. But the gist is, I mean, where do you even begin? Some people want to punish people for not being there. Some people don't necessarily want to punish them, but they want to maybe not give them as much as their other players. I guess one example of this would be if you're using the proper experience system of the game. An absent player wouldn't get as much experience as the other people, so therefore you come into level discrepancies or differences and stuff. Other people don't do that. We typically just kind of run the players who aren't there, and the DM will just kind of run their character to the minimum, most default autopilot they can imagine. But that also runs into things that the DM isn't your character. They haven't invested the amount of time, the hundreds of hours or whatnot of gameplay, however long you've done your backstory and everything you've put mind wise into your character. So they don't know what the decisions they'll make. They may be able to guess, but as a DM, I personally I'm afraid to run anybody's character, not just because I have to fucking learn their character in about 5 minutes while we're running the game. But the other thing is like I don't want to make a decision on their behalf that they wouldn't necessarily make, or conversely to that, have them not do anything when they would have chimed in to be opposed to a decision the party is making. So, what is your guys' thoughts on the whole situation of just an absent player?
If they miss a session, kick them
They
from the
die.
party.
You kick them.
You
Sudden
get one
death.
session. If you miss it, you're out. Sorry.
See ya. So is that a legitimate? Is that a legitimate?
Yeah, and
stance?
I've never missed a session, so I don't have to worry about ever being kicked out.
And I like you note that it's
That's
not.
true.
It's the character that gets kicked out of the party. It's not the player. The player comes back and has to make a
Right.
new character.
Oh, understood.
No, the
Okay.
player can still come to the sessions, but doesn't get to play.
Oh, okay.
He just
They
has to
just
sit
have
there.
to sit there.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Man,
Cool.
that's brutal. That's brutal.
Well,
See, I changed my mind recently, actually, because we had a stint of a few players that I had to kind of pilot them. And I feel like, is this penance, BB, for you missing yesterday's session? Is
This idea came to me because I missed yesterday's session, and let's talk about that for a second. So I just missed a session in your game. So the timeline for this, for the sake of the videos, is my character for the past, I don't fucking know, 4 or 5 sessions now, had some sort of terrible disease curse thing. I don't know what the hell it was.
it was a curse.
Was it a curse? Okay. more on that. Well, so I had this this curse on me that was draining or attempting to drain my hit points, my hit point maximum that was threatening to kill me and making me fucking cough out flies and just be all around, sickly. And it's been, kind of a side thing for me is trying to cure it. We've tried a couple of things, but at the same time, we are dealing with this fucking crisis, this big fucking threat of the, these Wanti doing all sorts of shit. So like, it's nothing we could just try to figure out. Nothing at our disposal seems to work. We even wasted a use of one of our magical items. And so all of that, these 5 episodes of me making, character RP, discussions on it, pulling characters to the side, seeing if they can fix, like being generally worried and blah, 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 just to have it. So, and it was fine. I had a feeling it was going to happen just because the timing was bad, but personal things got in the way. I could not make it to the last session because I was not home, and therefore I missed the session in which my character was cured. Right, so I was cured. I'm saved. Hooray! I mean, that's great news. I didn't die. But that brings me to 2 points. Point number 1 is it sucks. It's anticlimactic from my point of view, and probably even the player's point of view, because I don't know how you guys did it. I haven't watched the VOD at this point, so
It was a long, drawn out RP session.
Yeah, I was really came my own playing Davos.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, yeah. How did that RP go?
It was legitimately, and you're right. It's disappointing.
Super disappointing.
It basically was.
I wanted to. I mean, I'll say I was the character who cured him, and I wanted to wait until next session for him to be there once I got the ability to do it. But the way that things panned out, we have more impending doom, and it couldn't wait. So
yeah, see, and that's the thing that sucks. It's just because it kind of worked out, and it wasn't my fault. It's not like I purposely missed the session. I just couldn't make it. But we didn't get to have that immediate. I mean, we can still technically have an RP about my character now reacting to the fact that you've just saved him, right? But it just feels kind of cheated because it should have happened in the moment, not however much time has passed.
Yeah, because if we wanted, we could have like a flashback scene, right? But it's not. It's not going to be the same as in media res, like of the session, like in the it's going to happen, right? I mean,
right.
And how it happened during the session was literally just, and I guess spoilers for, I think, episode, what is it, 13, 14?
13, lucky number.
Oh, right, 13. Yes, lucky 13. I basically was like, oh, I get to roll the thing. I was so excited to maybe kill Davos. And then Nate was like, no, I'm going to cast the spell.
Yeah.
So, and now here's the other thing to that point. Let's take a dip into an alternate reality where Davos didn't get cured, and let's just say Davos died. So then it would have been pretty fucking shitty, and this would be true for anybody, is you can't make it to a session or whatnot, and your character dies. So you weren't present. Like, you could have invested all that time in your character, and dying already sucks, right? It's emotional, depending on your attachment. I guess it depends on the player and the game too. Some people just, they're dying every other session, so it's whatever. But I mean, a lot of sessions, like you've invested a lot of time, you've taken them through multiple levels and multiple adventures, and then for them to die, it sucks. And then to not be there when you die, so you just show up to the next session, like, okay, you're rolling a new character. You didn't experience its final moments, would have been such a stab to the chest. And you couldn't, depending on the situation, you couldn't blame the DM in most cases, unless that DM is really just trying to be a dick and kill your character. If the dice did what the dice did and it just didn't work out that way, it sucks. But like, that is an issue that I have personally been afraid of as a DM. I haven't been in that situation yet, but what happens if you're running the game and you're trying to do everything that character would do, or even getting your players' input on what they would do, and then it just so happens that the player dies, and then you have to deal with that, that fact that you let that player know that this happened, and it's gonna suck for them. That's gonna feel like you've been robbed, no doubt.
Yeah, that's why my opinion changed. I used to kind of do it on a case-by-case basis of, like, what I knew the session was going to be. Like, sometimes I would run a character for the sake of combat, right, and do the barest minimum. Like, if someone forcibly talked to them, I'd be like, this is probably what they'd say, or I'd cop out and be like, you do whatever you think is right. Sure. But my mindset recently has gone more into basically asking the player what if they would rather their character do nothing and find an excuse to not be there, or be busy doing something else, or ask them like, are you okay with them being involved in combat and whatnot, and some decisions having to be made by me that will affect your character, right? Like the possibility they could die in a fight, or that they might have to, use or, do something.
And that's a great suggestion. Making sure that it's very clear that's a possibility, and it'll definitely soften the blow. But it's still going to feel real shitty if you're not there to
For
experience it.
sure.
And again, for the sake of story, for the sake of fairness, you don't want to give them plot armor and be like, oh, they're not here, so they can't die. You can't do that either, right?
Yeah,
So
right. You
you
wouldn't
run into
ever
the
fudge a roll
situation.
to make that not happen. Wink.
But I don't know. For me, it just seems. But yeah, okay, even in that sense that you're fudging a roll, it just feels wrong because that player's not there, so they get to just for free succeed on shit just because they're not there. Like it's
Yep.
such a and so on
There's no
another
good way
point,
of doing it, because
it
either
sucks,
you
right?
do it as normal, and for a couple rounds it's the DM playing against himself, because
Sure,
it's like, oh, the enemies attack them and now he's gonna attack back, so it's just like taking two
sure,
action figures, just like da, da, da.
yeah,
Or
no, absolutely,
you either make them not be that effective, they're just doing like really basic stuff, like they're just going to attack, or oh, they're just going to use cantrips and they've got like a fireball in their back pocket. It's like,
right,
because you
right,
don't want to use their resources, or you don't want to like do anything too crazy. There's not like a
absolutely.
great way one way or another, at least when it comes to combat. I mean, RP is even worse, because it's like you don't like, after a number of sessions you can kind of have a good idea of like a character's sort of like baseline, but you don't know everything that's rolling in that player's head on like what's developing for the
Exactly.
character.
So there's and unfortunately that is just the consequences of the situation, right? Like if the player's not there, the player can't be there to make those decisions and do all that. But you just run into these very frustrating, and that's honestly, to I guess, to put that out there, why the Dungeoneers misses sessions when they do, is because typically, like, we'll be fine if one player misses it, it sucks. But the moment you have more than one, that's a lot. That's a lot of shit that you throw into the wind, and trying to fake RP two players and run two players, like it's just not fun. I don't think that's good. But
Yep.
what are your guys' thoughts on? And I've seen this. I don't know if you guys have before. I've definitely heard stories. A lot of DMs that I've heard will just come up with some crazy horseshit to make a reason for the character not to be there, right? So like, oh, and I've admittedly done this in an off-stream game before. Been like, oh, because like the character wasn't going to be there for a couple of sessions, so he got like the stomach flu and stayed in bed for however much time. Which I've seen a lot. I've seen the other DMs even go as far as like making ridiculous, silly shit happen just to kind of punish the player a little bit. But I don't know if
There's
I
also,
guess that's a
depending
whole
on your
discussion we can
campaign
have.
setting, I've definitely heard stories of like some players, like their characters can poof in and out of existence because they have some artifact with the party that like they can go into a
Yes,
pocket
they
plane.
allow them to astral project themselves in from their doing their church rite.
Right.
um
So there's creative ways to do it, but I
That's
don't know.
honestly become my favorite way of doing it, because it still has them doing something useful. You're basically shoving them as an NPC ally, of just like they're still helping you, but they can be off doing something. So like recently we had Squirrel wasn't on with a session when you guys went off to spoilers for episode 12 for a Guild's Tale. You guys went off to encounter the final sigil and found Laura, and Tyreen stayed behind to guard the tower. And so, because I didn't want to run him as a character or as like a fighter in this boss fight that was already going to have to. The idea was run a bunch of stuff that never really worked out. But instead he just like stayed behind and made sure that no Yanti or anything showed up at the sigil and did something, which was a real threat, right? So there's still a use that they can play without you having to actually do anything. I feel like that's probably I would say one of the best ways of handling a
Yeah.
missing player is.
Yeah. The problem with that is you can get into situations where, depending on how much you care about the mechanics of your world. So definitely a loosely written, kind of goofy campaign could easily be able to do something silly as like they're able to teleport in and out or whatever, come up with some crazy shit. But if you're a little bit more strict on, non crazy high level wizards having access to artifacts that would effectively be crazy strong like that, then you run into situations of what happens if the player's not there, and you come up with some legitimate excuse for them to not be there, and then the players find themselves in a situation or progress further along than you did or whatnot, and they're in a situation where it's awkward to reintroduce that player immediately into the next session. Like for instance, I don't know what's a good example. Like
Captured by
one
Drow
thing
and
that
brought into the Underdark.
well that and one thing that I made a point in game to your very point with how we had Squirrel and Tyreen is I try to set this up for you to help you in game during the session that he was gone, is because you're trying to pull him away, and it's obvious that you were trying to do that. But in my head, I realized there's only one boat. We take the boat, he leaves here. If we start next session on the mainland, he's still on this fucking island. Then there's no reason. What do you fucking swim with his heavy armor across the lake? Like it doesn't make any sense. So you can very easily that works. Sometimes it's not your 100% foolproof method.
But I will
because
say, I think that's important, is the players have to understand that that you got to play ball with the DM, and that helps set up the the idea that he came with you to make sure he brought a boat back with the fish with the ferryman, and set up an actual believable way for him to get off the island.
Right, but and like I said, the problem is that's not always going to work. You may find yourself in a situation where they progress further into the story. Okay, here's one that just popped in my head just now. The players move on, the other guy's back securing whatnot, and you had something planned where there was some sort of secret entrance to a dungeon. They find it. You don't want to rob them of that fact. The players go into the secret dungeon. Well, how the fuck does the other player know where the secret dungeon is? They don't know where the secret entrance would be. You know what I'm saying? Like
your stupid barbarian found the same.
He stumbled upon this anciently hidden.
Now you're doing extra work to try to come up with some plausible way for them to be there, but sometimes that's not an easy thing to, or even a physical thing you can do, depending on the situation.
Yeah, I think
it's tough.
It's tough, and I think it just comes down to players have to kind of stretch their disbelief a bit sometimes.
Yeah,
but there are tools you can use as DM, like, oh, they got captured by some Sperfiblin, and they actually knew about this whatever thing, like whatever tools. Even if you went to different planes, like, oh, fiends, you went to hell and left a guy behind. First, weird, but also, oh, fiends captured him, and now you gotta go save him. So,
yeah, but you can only do that so many times before it's just getting frustrating, right?
Well, hopefully your player isn't missing that many sessions, to be fair.
Well, I'm just saying, if that becomes
I'm going to be
regular...
gone for 33 sessions, by the way. So
not just that, but if you're playing weekly, it's going to be pretty common that you have players that are going to miss here and there. But there's only so many scenarios that you can do before it just turns into, oh, he's only doing this because
that's why I don't think you can do it every time.
It's also going to slow down your game. You can have a bunch of shit planned out, but now you're catering a whole half a session to a combat encounter to free your fucking party member because he did miss a session and got captured again. You know what I'm saying? That could work once, and then after that, then it's annoying.
Just the guy that keeps getting captured every other session.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I think you definitely you got to tailor it a bit.
It's the toughest shit in my opinion. I personally think that that we talked about in a previous question on a episode, the hardest shit about DMing for us, and I honestly didn't think about that at the time, but I think that's it. I think trying to run characters or trying to deal with players who aren't there and what to do with their characters, that's difficult. That's difficult as shit.
I don't know.
It's something that's gonna be difficult, and there's not a easy kind of one solution. You gotta kind of tailor it case by case.
Anyways, that was the one thing I had to talk about. Does anybody come up with another topic we can move on to? Do we have any questions we can pull?
Well, I was thinking on kind of the same vein. How would you deal? Because I've had a similar sort of thing come up to players that say, hey, either I'm not enjoying this character or I want to try something else. What can we do to shelve this character and try something different?
That is a good question. That's a really good fucking question because I actually dealt with this on an off-stream scenario recently. I had a player who was, they didn't hate their character, but they wanted to, they wanted to change things up a bit and reflavor it to do something else. Maybe the character wasn't doing exactly what they wanted and whatnot. So now on one side of that coin, I'm a fan of changing things for the sake of fun, right? Allowing them to kind of maneuver things around so it gets into the realm of what they're aiming for and whatnot, or get them in a situation where they're enjoying the game. But the other hand is you don't want to set a precedent that makes it so, oh, I can just swap things around anytime I want and just always be taking crazy shit, right? Like I've made it through level 10 with this character. Now I'm going to swap over and be a monk now because I just feel like playing a monk. Like then it kind of it undervalues the characters themselves, right? Because then if it's no different than any other character, any other player in most scenarios. Like they're not going to be changing characters until they die, and then they have to go through that emotional set. But you are just like saying, "I give up, and now I'm going to play this character." So it's a double edged sword, I think.
Yep.
On one hand, you want them to have fun. On the other hand, you don't want to just say, "Okay, everybody, you're not happy. Okay, let's roll new characters out of the blue," and then or just give people the option to be able to change shit on the fly whenever they want. So that's fucking difficult.
Yeah,
That's
there's
really
a few
difficult.
things on because I've dealt with it a couple of times, and one of the biggest things was investment. Right, you're now the rest of the party's now having this like another just like brand new person played by a person
Sure,
they're familiar with that is now coming to the
sure.
party. You have to crowbar in a way for them to like make sense to be there, and as well as the player's own investment of people are human and they don't always know what they want, right? Or it can take time to be happy with a character. The
Mhm.
biggest example I can think of that I had was Phaser in the Horde Dragon Queen Rise of Tiamat game. He repeatedly told me, like in the first for dozen or two of that campaign collection, that he did not like Crichton, that he didn't enjoy playing the character, and he wanted to kind of do something else. And it was only like a dozen sessions in, or within the first dozen. So I was like, all right, maybe just give it some time, see how you feel. And by the end of it, he said, he was thankful that I kind of not forced him, but someone suggested that he stick with it for a bit to just kind of feel it out, and it became one of his favorite characters that he had played. So
Right.
sometimes like a player might not be like happy at the moment with something, but it might just take a little bit of kind of reworking the character or just kind of getting comfortable with it to actually realize that like, oh no, this is actually fine. I just needed to change my mindset about it.
I guess my opinion would be, you just go under the everybody gets one rule, right? Where you just kind of understand that if you want to do a drastic change, for the sake of you not having fun this way, you want to change it to something this way, just make it very clear, like, okay, I'm going to allow you to do this. We're going to reflavor this. This is your one time you get to do this, right? Whatever your new decision is, that's what you're stuck with. So make sure it's a good one, because we're not going to sit here and be flip flopping just because now you're trying this out and you're not liking it. Well, that's not fair to other players who are they're dealing with their character flaws just because you don't like your character flaws and you're trying to min max the best possible least flawed you know character you can. Or I mean, that's just one example. That might not be your mindset at the time, but I think you definitely want to give a little, but not give too much. Because if you give too much, then like you said, you set that precedent that just undervalues the whole concept of you know being tied to a character and character investment, like you said.
Yep.
And you don't want to put yourself in a situation where that's what's expected.
And that's
Anybody can
also
just come to the table and
it's
want to change
upsetting
it.
as a DM as well if you set up a bunch of like backstory stuff and like character arcs, and then it's like, oh, I want to play something different. It's like, well, all this stuff is now pointless, because my caveat I usually do is if you swap characters, you don't get to go back to that first one. They become an NPC, and I will do whatever with them. Right? They might
Yeah,
stay near the party and be doing something, or they might do whatever, but you don't get to then
sure,
be like, never mind, I'm gonna go back to them.
agreed. So
Which I kind of took from the Powered by the Apocalypse sort of system, because those have the like once you level up you can like retire a character, right? I mean, in those games it specifically says the keeper cannot mess with them,
yeah,
but
that's true.
I think it's important so you're not forming your own like guild Yeah,
you
like,
just have a bunch of like NPCs that's tucked away. You just have a bunch of retainer characters just
yeah, they're like,
waiting.
I want to play this guy this time because we need a
Yeah.
healer for this fiend adventure.
Which is a really fucking cool idea for a campaign.
Well, I mean, it's basically
idea,
like almost like a West Marches type game, right? Like it
Yeah.
is neat to have. To be fair, and I think Curry did an amazing job at this. Of like, I have that struggle sometimes where I like kind of just want to play something differently mechanically. So in his
Mhm.
Tuesday game, he formed we had an A group and a B group. The A group
Yeah.
was our like 14th level or like 11th level characters that we had played since the beginning of the campaign, and then like once we reached a large point where we were like the main group was making their own faction, they formed a section of the guild, and we made a second party of level 5 characters. And we swap
cool.
back and forth. We'll do like, half a dozen sessions as one, then half a dozen as the other, going back and forth from different characters and classes, and it helps things stay fresh.
Yeah, that's one cool way to do it.
Yeah.
So we had the idea for, we did a bunch of like off-stream stuff here and there where we had a similar idea where we just kind of, again, it was a West Marches style of you had a mixed bag of like different people and characters they had that you kind of mixed and matched whenever just people were available to play.
Sure.
Which can be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, next campaign, BB, I want to play a different character every session. Thanks.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. I'm gonna pick every one of Brian's characters that he's already made, and then just
Yeah.
play those.
Yeah, everybody's just gonna play Superman maxed,
Yep.
unkillable, does 1 million damage. Can't wait.
Man, we should just make a whole party from Brian's selection of characters.
I agree.
It'd be the most powerful fucking thing.
We need to get him back on the show because I want to, during a bonus action,
Gotta
when
have
we
some
don't have a lot of
min-max
questions lined
sections.
up. Yeah, I want to talk to. I want to tell him to give us like 2 or 3 of his character designs, and then just sit here and just shake our heads.
Get angry at him.
Because the thing is, I mean, it's not cheating. He takes the mechanics that are in the game, and I know most of his builds at the very least are not. They don't use like Unearthed Arcana or playtest material. It's official sources, and you just look at it and you're like, dude, that's fucking broken. Like that's crazy. But
I mean, I think some of them use variants like features and stuff, right? But that's a pretty common thing in a lot of games.
Well, that's the thing. It's all optional rules because multi-classing is technically optional.
Yep.
Feats are technically optional. So it's.
Man,
it's
can
just
you
a matter of
imagine those
using some-
games that play just like base ranger? What miserable tables that must be.
Everybody's just crying the entire time. Like,
I'd like to make a roll to. Are you playing a ranger? Yeah, no. You don't get to.
but we don't even travel.
Can't get advantage? No, you're not in your favorite terrain. We've never been in the mountains. What are you talking about?
There's no mountains in my world, actually. What do you?
The mountains all blew up at the calamity of 1744.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh.
You always cut to dark during travel time.
Finally, my chance to know.
Oh shit.
Oh man. Well, I think that's good for those 2 solid topics.
I think so. I think we had a fair. We don't have a lot on the lineup for fan submitted questions, and that's okay.
I mean, the bonus
you
actions
guys
have been pretty short, anyways. I like getting a few
That's true.
little bite-sized things like this.
It's not meant to be a main discussion like the main discussion.
Yep. Well, thank you all for watching. This has been the bonus section, episode 7. Of course, as mentioned, if you're watching live, we have, like I say, even if you're not watching live, we have our bi-weekly games Friday and Saturday at our usual time of 6 p.m. EST at twitch.tv/the_Dungeoneers. And of course, Sundays, starting now, we have, as of the 8th of December, this is now becoming a bi-weekly podcast. So our next episode of
we should put an asterisk there because I'm assuming there's going to be weeks where we make it not bi-weekly and we jump right in if like there's a big announcement.
We'll discuss about that. The next one way or another, unless they release like 12 Unearthed Arcanas over the next week, we will have the next Discussioneers and bonus section live on the 22nd of Does that work? We should probably make sure it's December. It's going to be hard to make sure everyone's actually around.
Oh, that's true. It's like right around Christmas time. Fuck.
Yep. It should tentatively be the 22nd of December. If you don't find an episode, then you know what happened.
Maybe it'll just be me talking to myself.
It might be.
Oh, that would be such a good episode.
Little Santa
What do you think,
hats.
Matt? Well, I think this is bullshit, and I want to reroll.
Excellent. And again, thank you. And until next time, Nate, you got your blurb yet?
Yeah, you know what, guys? Just go right ahead down into there in the comments section on YouTube, and don't forget to use your reaction to let us know what you think.
Yeah.